All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our online event today. We are going to be chatting through everything you need to know about work visas in the US. If you're just now joining us, we're super happy to have you here today. Please drop a short introduction in the chat. Let us know where you're calling in from today and also what you do for work. My name is Christina. I'm here with Outsite and my other co-host here. Why don't you give a little introduction?
Sure. Yeah. My name is Alix Cayce. I'm joining you guys from Legalpad to just talk through all of this information. And I'm working from Huntington Beach, California.
Nice. And I'm just down the road from her, actually, in San Diego. But if you know anything about Outsite, we are about working remotely while traveling. So I'm actually a nomad myself. So kind of always on the road. And this is really relevant to our outsiders here in the call because we have so many different nationalities in our membership, and a lot of them are entrepreneurs and they're in the startup world and they're wondering how can we work remotely in the US. So we're going to be covering a lot of great information today. We are recording this video, so we will send a copy to everyone afterwards. So definitely take notes, take screenshots, but we will send you the recording afterwards so you always have it because we are going to go in depth on a lot of information. Thank you everyone so much for joining us today. And we're going to go ahead and get started here in 1 or 2 minutes. If you're just joining us, please drop a short introduction in the chat to everyone. Let us know where you're calling in from and also what you do for work.
You can actually mention that the chat is disabled. I'm not sure if you're able to enable that on your side.
No way. Let me take a look and see what's going on. Sorry, y'all. Let me. Oh, you're right. Okay. Thanks for pointing that out, y'all. Now, everyone, the chat is available. Please let us know where you're calling in from and also what you do for work. Again, my name is Christina. I work from Outsite. I'm working remotely from San Diego today. And we also have my wonderful co-hosts from Legalpad.
Perfect.
Awesome. Oh, don't forget everyone, you can chat to everyone, not just the host and panelist. And let's see, we'll wait 1 more minute before diving into our topic today. Also, for anyone who prefers to have their webinar with closed captions, you can do that on the bottom bar. You just click the button that says CC and it should be enabled for you. Ooh, awesome. Great. Thank you everyone from your introduction. Some more California representation here and West Coast. Oh,
yeah, some Germany. That's pretty exciting.
Ooh, it's kind of late there for you. Thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
London, Salt Lake City. That's so fun.
Oh, awesome. Great to hear that you were just in San Jose, Cameron. Super fun place to be. Nice. New York, St. Louis.
A cruise ship in the Caribbean. Okay.
How's that Wi-Fi? I hope it's great. That's like we were just talking about before the call started that you actually worked on some boats, right?
I did. Yeah, I actually did. I lived and worked in the Caribbean as well, but I was on smaller boats on the sailing catamarans. So significantly smaller.
Yes, absolutely. Oh, very cool that you got the Starlink on your ship. That's great. All right. We are still having some people roll in, but I think we should go ahead and get started. I'm going to give just a brief introduction about myself and Outsite, and then I'm going to hand it over to you. My name is Christina. I work on guest experience and product for Outsite. We offer beautiful places to stay around the world for remote workers, entrepreneurs, creatives. We've been building this network since before the pandemic. So it's really exciting that there's a lot more flexibility. And now that remote work is really, it's an understood sentiment between everyone around the world. So it's really exciting to see everyone really embrace this remote work revolution. We do have 50 spaces across like 3 or 4 continents. We're in a lot of different locations, so please check out our website. We do have a lot here in the US, which is what we are concentrating on here in today's talk. So definitely we have a really nice map on the website. Go check it out. And now I am going to hand it over to my co-host.
Perfect. Yeah, just to introduce myself again, my name is Alix Cayce. I've been with Legalpad for over 2.5 years now. I did not have an immigration background prior to joining Legalpad. I'm a US citizen. Initially in my career, I got straight into tech, DocuSign, Zillow, Amazon, really just right into it in Seattle. And I got totally burnt out. And I just decided to pick it all up and go work on boats in the Mediterranean and Caribbean for about 3.5, 4 years. And what that taught me was that we should not be bound to a desk. We need more than that in life. And we also need opportunity to chase our dreams regardless of where, those take us. And so the job with Legalpad was just really perfect for me. It enabled me to use my previous, corporate experience, but to help people chase those dreams. And if they bring them to the US, that's wonderful. If they bring them to other countries, we'll explain that in a little bit, but there's some opportunity there as well. I'm assuming everyone can see my screen. If you cannot see my screen, please let us know in the chat. And throughout the talk, please feel free to ask questions. I'm not going to stop for every question, but there are sort of different segments. So I'll take a look at the questions between segments and make sure to answer those. And then we'll open up the floor to Q&A at the end as well. Okay. So before we dive into the presentation too much, just a brief introduction to Legalpad and why we exist. If you have gone down the road of US immigration ever in your past, even as a student, you might be aware that it's really heavily catered towards large corporations when it comes to employment-based immigration. It can be extremely overwhelming for smaller companies or for individual, visa seekers to really navigate that terrain. So that's where Legalpad comes in. We saw this really huge need for early stage companies to have the type of representation that corporations have through their internal immigration counsel. We're obviously not going to be your internal immigration counsel, but we want to fill that gap, sort of your external immigration counsel, if you will. So our specialty is early stage startups and helping those founders and early teams be able to work in the US. Very exciting announcement for Legalpad is that we were recently acquired by a little company called Deal. Deal is completely disrupting the marketplace. They're enabling remote work in a totally unheard of way. By using Deal, you can literally hire anyone practically anywhere. So at present, Deal works with over 8,000 clients, everything from small startups all the way into larger corporations, and is working on establishing, an employment without borders type of model. So they have a few different options. You can work as a contractor, or rather hire contractors through Deal, or you can hire full-time employees using Deal as the employer of record. So for example, maybe you have a developer in Lithuania who doesn't want to leave Lithuania, but you don't have an entity in Lithuania. So how do you hire them? Well, Deal does have an entity there. So they'll hire that person for you and then contract them out. So that's an amazing, amazing option. And then of course, global payroll. So payroll can be such a nightmare, and they're really trying to address that, not on a singular country basis, but on a global basis. They have a few different hiring toolkits as well, which can be extremely helpful. So you can check out their global hiring guide, which can help you understand best practices for hiring remote team members in over 50 countries. You can also look, 150 countries. You can also look at global salary insights, which are going to help you to benchmark salary requirements for international hires. You can look at employee cost calculators, which will help you understand the actual cost to hire an employee dependent on the country you're hiring in. And then a global employment comparison, which is going to help you understand country by country, which countries are more beneficial for you to hire in from a cost perspective than others. So Deal is an amazing opportunity, and it really pairs well with Legalpad. by the nature of remote work, they want people to be able to be mobile, to flex around the world without feeling the strain of immigration. And that's where we come in, is to really grow that out on a global scale. With Outsite, we have a wonderful partnership. So for any Outsite member who decides to pursue a visa with Legalpad, we'll offer you a $500 discount off of our legal fees. And of course, you'll be given a free consultation to help you understand your visa eligibility. So let's just dive right into the immigration aspect. So today we're going to talk about kind of the US work visa nuances you need to know. We're going to look at visa options for remote work, the best visas for startups, what it's like to travel to the US for an accelerator program and how you can be doing that more effectively. And then of course, we'll open the floor for questions, and I'd love to have, open discussion if anybody has particular needs that they'd like to go through, obviously depending on time. So what is a US work visa? Essentially, it's just a visa that allows you to not only live, but also work in the US. And that is a huge distinction. You do need to have work authorization to work while you're physically present in the US. A work visa does tie you to a single employer. So there isn't the ability to just sort of like freelance. You're going to need to work for one particular employer. Interestingly, that employer can be your own company. There's a lot of reasons you may be interested to pursue a work visa in the US. Maybe you're growing your business out in this market and you want to be closer to your US customers. A lot of our clients are quite keen to meet with investors, prospects, customers, and they're finding it difficult to do with a tourist visa. Or maybe you're ready to establish a US office and have a more permanent presence here. And like I said, the tourist visas, the ESTA and the B1, they have significant limitations. And for entrepreneurs, those limitations can become really, really difficult. So they need an option to push them past that. So digging in a little bit deeper into those tourist options, the two options that are available to you are the B1, which is a visitor visa that allows you to travel into the US for up to 6 months. B1 tourists are eligible for one extension, meaning that the maximum stay on a B1 is 1 year. You would not want to stay longer than a year. Then we have the ESTA, and the ESTA is a visa waiver program that's available to nationals of 38 different countries. It does allow you to travel to the US for a maximum of 90 days, and it is not eligible for any extensions. For both of these visas, there's no clear guidelines on how frequently you can enter the US. The guidelines are more that it needs to be a reasonable amount. So that really leaves a lot up to the Customs and Border Officer to determine what is a reasonable amount. And for our entrepreneurs who are coming to the US quite frequently, or spending extended periods here, it can raise eyebrows. So that brings us to the work visa options for startups. Maybe you're getting to the point where the last time you entered the US, CBP said, we're not okay with this anymore. You need to get a work visa. It looks like you're working, or you're just getting a little bit nervous, or you genuinely need to work in the US and you have to grow out your business here. So when we're talking through work visas for startups, there are a bunch of different options. Some of the main visas we support are these 6 that you see in front of you. Well, 7 actually. The O1A is Legalpad's sort of bread and butter. It's where we got our start, and it's still what we are the most known for. The O1 is an extraordinary abilities visa type where we need to say that the visa holder has an extraordinary ability in their field. So it's for founders, entrepreneurs, researchers. It can even be for artists if we're looking at the O1B. The H-1B is a specialty occupations visa. It's what the majority of employees working in the US are on. It's not as well catered to an entrepreneur for a variety of reasons that we'll get into shortly, but it's wonderful for anyone in the STEM fields. Then we have the L1, A, and B, which is an intra-company executive or managerial transferee visa, or for someone with specialized proprietary knowledge of the company abroad. Then we're looking at the E3 and TN, and these are US work authorization for nationals of Australia, Canada, and Mexico. So there are special treaties that enable work visas for nationals of those countries selectively. And in fact, there's also the H-1B1 for nationals of Chile and Singapore. Then when it comes to permanent residency, which comes up pretty frequently, we also have the EB1, A, B, and C options, which are for executives, entrepreneurs, researchers, community leaders, 3 different categories, but they kind of encompass all of those. Then Then we have the EB2 national interest waiver, which is, for professionals who are advancing business and technology in the national interest. We're going to dive a little bit deeper on a few of these different options here. So starting with the H-1B, you may or may not know that we are very quickly approaching H-1B lottery season. So this is going to become a really buzzy issue in the immigration space in the next couple of weeks. The H-1B is a temporary work visa that allows employers to hire workers in a specialty field. Specialty occupation workers are individuals like software engineers, data analysts, people who require a very particular degree to qualify for their job. As I said, this is the most common type of work visa in the US, and there's some clear reasons. It's relatively inexpensive. It's extremely straightforward. It's really the simplest option. However, it's also the most competitive. So there is a lottery every year, and only 65,000 bachelor's holders and master's holders, and then another 20,000 master's holders will be selected in that lottery, which, if you can believe it, represents about 30% of the people who are submitted to that lottery. So unfortunately, it's not a guarantee that you're going to be given the opportunity to pursue an H-1B. If an H-1B is not appropriate or doesn't work out, we can look at a couple of other options. So another visa that we focus on pretty heavily at Legalpad is the L1. The L1A and B is a work visa that allows for the transfer of executives, managers, or specialized workers from an office outside of the US to an office inside of the US. As I said, it's for those kind of executives, managers, or individuals with proprietary knowledge of how the company operates, who've worked for at least 1 out of the last 3 years at the company abroad, and now need to come to the US to kind of grow out that part of the organization. Some really clear advantages to the L1 if it's available. It is valid for up to 7 years. This one's really unique. It does give your spouse work authorization incident to status, which means that the second your spouse enters the US, they can work for anyone, which is ironic, I think, because you are tied to your company. And then the other thing is that it offers a direct path to permanent residency. And in fact, the path is the EB1C, which for individuals who are concerned with staying in the EB1 category can be a really huge advantage of the L1. And then finally, let's talk about the O1A. So like I said, this is Legalpad's really strongest visa because we've done so many of them. At this point, we've helped over, I think, 490 founders come to the US on O1s. The O1 is a temporary work visa that's valid for 3 years and then eligible for indefinite renewal so long as you continue to work in the same field. It's for individuals with an extraordinary ability in their field as evaluated by them meeting at least 3 out of 8 criteria set by the Immigration Service. They want to see that these individuals are working in the fields of technology, science, business, and the arts. And we've found that venture-backed founders almost always qualify. There are a slew of advantages to the O1. It really is pretty unparalleled in the immigration space. Unlimited extensions, no deadlines or seasonality. The criteria are based off of your accomplishments, so it doesn't matter what country you're from or what your highest level of education is. And you can move around. So that's a really big one. You can move wherever you want. You can be in the US and easily come in and go out, move around the US. And then finally, there's no minimum pay requirement. So you can pay yourself whatever is a suitable salary for, your company at that time. I jumped ahead a little bit. I'm so sorry. I get excited about the O1, but as I mentioned, you can work for one company for 3 years. You can renew the visa in 1 to 3 year increments over and over again. And like I said, it's based off of accomplishments, not credentials. Things I didn't mention, it is relatively easy to change employers. So because the O1 is based off of your own accomplishments, it's sort of just tangentially tied to the employer. Your accomplishments are yours no matter where you're working. So as long as you're transferring to a new company, but working within the same field, it's highly likely that that will be approved. There's also quite quick turnaround with the O1. You'll get a response within 15 days from your submission if you take advantage of premium processing. So theoretically, you could begin the process, and within 3 months, you could be in the US on your visa. And then finally, there's some really great paths to a green card. So if permanent residency is within your goals and the O1 is something that might be realistic for you, this is an excellent way to get to that ultimate goal of permanent residency. I mentioned earlier that the extraordinary ability is evaluated based off of 8 criteria. Those criteria are set by the Immigration Service and they're stagnant. So they're going to be always the same for O's. They want to see that you've won nationally or internationally recognized awards for your work in your field. They want to see that you are a member of an organization with a highly selective entry process, that you've been critically employed with an organization with a distinguished reputation, that you've contributed something completely original to your field of work, and that that contribution has been disruptive in some way. They would like to see that you've been highly paid, so within the top 10% of industry professionals in your industry, in your region, that you've published scholarly articles that have been peer-reviewed and ideally have some citations. They would love to see that you've been mentioned in the press, having been highlighted in major media for your work or renown in your field. And finally, that you've been asked to judge the work of others in professional settings. So you only need to meet 3 of these, so don't get too daunted by this list. For our entrepreneurs, we make some somewhat non-traditional arguments. So we often argue that VC funding is an award. Having attended a highly competitive accelerator is a membership. Having judged hackathons and pitch competitions for judging, or that the value of your equity can play into high remuneration. So let's go ahead and look at a case from one of the founders we've worked with, Basha. Basha is the co-founder of SliceUp and went through Techstars' Air Force cohort in 2019. First of all, Basha is a joy to work with. I worked with her personally and she's just great. So if you know her or connect with her, you're very fortunate. The way that we made her case was by arguing that she met the press criteria because she was featured in Executive Business, Boss Intro, and Techstars, their TechCrunch article. She's critically employed as the co-founder of SliceUp having a distinguished reputation in its field. She has membership based off of her Techstars US Air Force cohort participation in 2019. She'd won awards for her work, including the Air Force Startup Accelerator, DefenseWorks MDO Challenge, Tech Connect Innovation Award, and then she'd been awarded $120K by Techstars. And finally, we argued for the judging criteria, saying that she was part of a Techstars US Air Force Accelerator Selection Committee, and she was a judge at the Society of Hispanic Professional Engineers. So objectively, to the average attorney, this actually might not look like a very strong O1 case. And that was the experience that Basha had coming to us. She'd been told no by various attorneys, but because this is what we specialize in, is making these non-traditional arguments for this very select segment of the industry, we were able to identify that this in fact was an O1 case. We just needed to argue it a very particular way. So as you can see from Basha's quote, we were successful in getting her an O1, and we've continued to work with her moving forward on helping her team come to the US and continue to grow. So some things that you can be doing to help yourself qualify for the O1, if that's something you're interested in, get funding. If you can seek funding from VCs or institutional investors, that's going to really help your case. I know with the economic downturn, this is easier said than done, but it is something that will really help. So if that's within your ability to do, we would always recommend it. Judging, if you can find events to judge where you're judging peers in your field and you're selected as a professional and leader, that's what we would love to see. Judging is actually a highly traditional argument, so that's one that the USCIS really likes. Press, again, highly traditional. It fits perfectly into the criteria. You want to get featured in 5 to 10 articles that mention you by name and talk about the value of your work. And it's not listed here, but if it's part of your plans to go through a major accelerator like Y Combinator, Techstars, Mass Challenge, and others, that will help you meet the membership criteria. So we would recommend that as well, although it can be a little higher lift, of course. So support that we can offer you on the front end if you're looking to pursue a work visa or a B. And in fact, I just want to stop here and make sure, does anybody have any questions about the qualifying standards that we talked about before I move on? I'll just pause for a second. Okay, looks like we're good. So if you do have them, just save them for the end. So support that we can give you on the front end is free consultations. So that's what my team is here for, is to really dig into your case with you, help you understand which visa would help you achieve your goals and how to get there. Or if you're already qualified, we can go ahead and bring you on to work with you. We also have a bunch of educational materials on our website. There's really so much. I really encourage you to go, peruse and see if there's things that will help you out. And then, of course, discounted fees. So if you do end up moving forward on a visa with Legalpad, we will take $500 off your first visa. So, yep, you can go ahead and book a call with us. We'll go ahead and share the booking link, I think later in this presentation. And then, yeah, you'll get on a call with a member of my team to go through everything. Okay. There's a lot of information, I know, so please, if you have questions at all or want clarification, or if you even just want to talk through your situation a little bit, I would love to go through that with you. Ishida has asked how you sign up for the consultation. You can actually go to our Get Started page, which I can share with you. Jess, I think you're actually on this call. You can go ahead and share that link if you're able to, since I'm sharing my screen. Any other questions? Okay. Oh yeah, sure. So when we're talking about cost for the O1, it's very straightforward. Through the end of this year, the legal fee for O1s is $8,000. Starting in 2023, the legal fee will be increasing to $8,500. And then the government charges a $460 mandatory filing fee. And then if you want to take advantage of premium processing, which guarantees you a response within 15 calendar days or less, that's an additional $2,500. Without premium processing, you're looking at a timeline of about 3 to 6 months to get an answer. So the question is the H-1B lottery open to all countries? Yes, it is 100% a true lottery. So anyone can enter so long as you have the proper educational requirements and a job offer. The company will need to enter you, and then they'll select 60,000 candidates from the general pool, and then they'll segment off another, like all of the master's degree holders, and they'll select another 20,000 from just the master's degree holders alone. So they do not take into account your country of origin for the lottery. Any other questions? Well, while we're waiting, I just want to mention, with Outside's whole mission and trying to kind of be fluid and work from anywhere, the O1 is probably the most ideal visa type to do that, because the H-1B, for example, requires that you declare where you're working. So if you were to say, I'm working in Huntington Beach, you have to stay in Huntington Beach. If you were to leave and work from somewhere else, you would have to adjust your visa accordingly. whereas the O1 allows you to just move around freely, and it doesn't require that you spend any minimum amount of time in the US. So you can think of the O almost like a tourist visa, but you have work authorization. So we really encourage that for people who are heavily focused on remote work and flexibility. Yeah, thank you, Erin, for sharing the Get Started link.
I have a quick question. I'm curious when it comes to like the future of visas, especially for working in the US.
Yeah.
If you like, what do you think kind of future holds for this? Do you think there's going to be any flexibility around this, or do you think they might introduce a new type of visa for something like a more digital nomad type of lifestyle?
It's really hard to say. Like, it would be pure speculation on my part. We're seeing around the world that that is becoming more prevalent, though, with golden visas, nomad visas. So, it would make sense that the US would follow suit. Unfortunately, the thing that makes me think they won't is taxes. They're pretty rigid and old-fashioned when it comes to how you file and everything. So these visas are pretty straightforward in terms of like setting you up to file your taxes appropriately. The other thing that makes me question that is that like, for example, the dependent visa of the O1 does not allow for work authorization. And a question we get asked a lot is, okay, well, my spouse works for a company in Canada. Can she live in the US and work remote for her company in Canada? Unfortunately, that's illegal. So if you are physically present in the US, they require you to have work authorization. So, it's an interesting situation. I'm very hopeful that it becomes less rigid. Deal, I mean, the way that Deal is disrupting the marketplace right now is really challenging those kind of rigid rules around this type of topic. So I'm hopeful that that's a clear sight to the future, that people are really leaning in that direction.
Good to know. I'm on the same page as you. I wish it would not be as rigid in the future, just because there is a lot of freedom and flexibility that we can all bring more of into our life. But I know the US immigration system has never been known for being super easy or super friendly. So I wish they would take this as an opportunity to improve.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, obviously, immigration reform has been a pretty hot topic for quite a while. And I can only think that it's coming because we keep talking about it. But you just never know. So, I mean, in the meantime, that's kind of what we're here for. Is it just doesn't seem right that, somebody who's just trying to, figure out how they can grow their company in the US has to pay $500 an hour to ask an attorney to give them some guidance, and that's like on the low end. So we really want to help people figure out how they can do this. And it probably comes as no surprise. A lot of early stage startup founders are young and they don't have just like money to burn. They're trying to figure it out the best they can. So we want to help kind of handhold and guide people through that.
Yeah, absolutely. And super great in-depth information that you went over today. Do we have any other questions? I know Alix would be happy to take them.
Well, while we wait, I will mention on the topic of kind of nomad visas, not partnership, our being part of Deal now has really opened the door for us to explore more international opportunities as well. So we're initially starting to look at Canadian immigration and immigration into the UAE. So if that's something that anybody is keen to explore, that's something we can also help you with. The UAE specifically with their golden visa can be really wonderful for entrepreneurs. And then Canada has, strict immigration requirements, but they're not quite at the point that the US is. It can be a little bit simpler to get some more flexibility in Canada. Cool.
Well, I think we answered the couple of questions that came up. Is there a way that people can get in touch with Legalpad if they have further questions?
Definitely. Yeah. So you can always go to our Get Started site, or our page, which Erin shared there. And that's going to put you on a call with a member of our team who can look into your case specifically. Legalpad also has a bunch of webinars. So we do O1 specific webinars, permanent residency webinars, H1B, L1. So if any of these options sort of perked your interest and you want to dive deeper, but aren't quite ready to get on a call with a team member, you can come to one of those webinars as well. And that's on our events and webinars page on the website. I can find that link here. Oh, perfect. Erin has me. Yeah, so that's probably the best way to make sure you're working with the same person continuously, is just using that Get Started form.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Any other final questions before we wrap up here? We also want to be mindful of everyone's time. But I think really it sounds like we covered a lot of great information. So, and now if you have anything further, go to the Get Started page and you'll be set up on your path.
Perfect. Thank you guys so much. It was so nice having this chance to talk with you, and I love what you guys are doing. So I really hope that we can continue to work with each other on visas for your members.
Yes, thank you so much, Alix, for all your expertise and your time. Really appreciate it. And thank you everyone for joining us today. Like I mentioned at the beginning of the chat, we will send a copy of this recording to you, so you'll have it as a reference point. And we'll also include the link to their Get Started page, so you have that handy as well. And thank you again so much for joining us. We also have events every month, so make sure if you're a member to check on the member hub to RSVP for those. And we're also we hope to see you at the next one. Thank you everyone for joining us. Bye. See you next time. Ciao, everyone.